Welcome to Real Estate Mastermind Live radio show. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-hosts, Jay Tannenbaum and Seti Gershberg of Scottsdale REI. Real Estate Mastermind Live is for real estate investors who want to learn from industry experts. We're going to show you how to raise more capital, close bigger deals, scale your own portfolio, and more. We also plan on having a trivia question each week, so make sure you listen in as you'll want to participate in this potential prize. Is going to be a little different than we've done in the past. Our phone number is 888-912-1190 to answer the trivia question, or you can just ask us a question. We'll answer it next week on the air. Today's special contest, though, is we're going to be giving away the Pro Version Calculator, which is worth $299. And the way we'll do this is the third caller wins. All right, rather than just the first caller, we're going to do the third caller. All right, so write that number down, 888-912-1190. And when I ask the trivia question later on in the show, this Pro Version Calculator is what we're giving away. In fact, let's start off with what that is. Who's going to answer that, Jay or Seti? Who's good at answering that question?
Seti.
Seti. Okay,
Yeah.
Seti, explain to us what this prize is, this Pro Version Calculator.
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit. In 2018, we were presented with a calculator that could calculate 7 different exits for mortgage note or real estate investing. And that calculator has now been upgraded, evolved many, many times. And what we have now is a calculator, again, that can model exits for mortgage note investing, as well as real estate, whether it is an REO or a rental property. And this calculator calculates 20 different exit strategies. So you can look at the profitability of your investment many different ways and see what works and what doesn't work. And as Edward said, this retails for $299. And you can check that out at ProREICalculator.com, I believe. We'll double check on that.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add to the evolution. The ROI calculator is basically very similar to the evolution of man. It started out as a stick figure, and now it's a robust program.
and it keeps evolving. Yes. Soon it'll turn into a rocket ship. We know that. All right, let's start off. Today it's just the three of us, no special guests. So we're going to talk about mortgage notes, firsts and seconds, performing, non-performing, etc. So Jay, why don't we start off? First, tell us what is a mortgage note and how are mortgage notes originated?
Certainly. So a mortgage note is really just a piece of paper. You go to a bank to buy your house, and the bank says, sign your name on the dotted line. I agree to pay you, X amount of dollars for this house. And the bank says, I know you and I trust you, but I want to securitize it, by putting it, securing against the house that you're buying. So that's how what a mortgage note is. It's basically buying paper. In our world, we're buying paper. It's originated, initially in our world from, the typical banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whoever. Then they're sold on the secondary market right away. And then once the borrower goes into default per se, a hedge fund buys them for $1.95 and sells them for $1.96, and it gets packaged as a commodity until it comes down to operators such as Scottsdale REI, to where we go where like Star Trek, we go where no one's gone before. We actually work through the mortgage note versus just keep selling it as a commodity.
All right. And Seti, why don't you answer this one? What's the difference between performing, non-performing, and a re-performing note?
All right, that's a really good question, Edward. So a performing note is one that the borrower is paying consistently month after month after month. So imagine the owner of a home, they pay their monthly mortgage like clockwork. Okay. Now, a non-performing loan is a loan where that borrower does not pay consistently. They can miss a number of payments, and after 90 days, it's considered a non-performing loan. And those loans are sold at a discount by banks and hedge funds, which is our preferred method of purchase. Now, a re-performing loan is one where a loan modification takes place after a borrower has failed to pay and their loan becomes non-performing and in a default situation. So when they're in a default situation, if we're able to modify their loan to terms that they can pay and they start paying on a regular basis, that would be reperforming. The other way to get a loan reperforming is when someone does a reinstatement. In that case, you don't need a loan modification. It's just that the borrower pays up everything that they owe, including penalties and interest payments, and then they're back on schedule.
And do you guys have any statistics as to how many times a reperforming note goes back into a default situation?
You know, statistically, the statistics are out there in the marketplace, and I think that they're not very good as far as the, it's almost like, prison recidivism kind of rates. They're probably around like that. It's once they go delinquent and you get them to modify, then the chances are likely they're going to default again. I say that though, however, and not trying to plug our own horn here, but at Scottsdale, our loss mitigation department does a really good job of treating our borrowers with dignity and respect.
Okay.
And basically, our approach is more the borrower is offering us what they can pay, right? And when you're offering when you're offering the bank what you can do, right, instead of being demanded upon or acquiescing under pressure, the chances are the chances of default are minimized. We probably have, I would say, less than 10% default rate on stuff that we've modified.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then if for some reason it goes back into being a default situation, then you go back into potentially foreclosing. And if you're buying these at a decent discount, there's potential to make some good profit on that.
Correct.
At least you're giving the borrowers a chance to save their house, because isn't it in most cases there's enough equity in there for the borrower to try to save the house?
Sure. Typically, in this marketplace for the last 10 years or so, yeah. I mean, when I first started this business in 2013, the majority of what we were buying was underwater, right? Coming out of the Great Recession, and still even then, though, I mean, there's a difference between, again, treating a borrower with dignity and respect versus being a debt collector and saying pay or die. When you come at them with that debt collection approach, you either get no communication, you get communication shut off, or they agree to something they have no desire to commit to because they just get you off the phone.
I think it's very interesting now that when I think about this, the 2000, let's say 15 compared to now, people, their income situation may not be too much different, but they have probably a lot more equity in the house. They're not underwater. So there is a bigger incentive for them to try to save the house rather than just, hand over the keys and say, well, there's no reason for me to try to save this.
Coupled with that and just timing, I love to tell a story where, it's always about timing, right? You got guys who, blow you off and don't respond to you. And then all of a sudden, the even foreclosure sale, they call you up and you make a deal. Like I had a guy a long time ago in Minnesota where basically on the Friday before the foreclosure sale, he calls up and says, hey, I know I'm in default. I know it's going to sale. It's paying like $300 a month. I can pay you $600 a month and kind of catch up and get back on track. Now, what was the timing? Timing was he worked for the railroad in Minnesota. He got like a 300% wage increase. His child support had just finished. Kid turned 18, and he just paid off his truck. Now, in the Midwest, trucks are more important than your housing.
Yeah. Because remember, you can always live in a truck. You can't drive around in a house. That's a good point.
There you go.
All right, so Seti, I know this show we're actually going to cover some sophisticated stuff and some basic stuff. Not that I'm purposely picking Seti to answer the basic questions. It just kind of falls this way. Give us the difference between a first position and a second position mortgage, and do you guys participate in both?
Yeah, but first let me address your very hysterical comment, because I would challenge it, because tiny homes many times come on trailers with wheels.
They're good.
So they can't be driven around.
That's a very good question. That's a very good point. I like that. All right. So
all right. So in answer to your question, a first position mortgage is one in which the lender has originated a loan, and they stand to get repaid first should there be a default and should the loan get repaid. Or, for example, if we go through the foreclosure process and the loan would first go to, or the property would go to an auction with the intent that it would be sold, so the lender would get paid off. In this case, the lender that's in first position would get paid off first. A second is when it comes behind it. So you can borrow 2, 3, or more times on a particular property if there's equity. So let's say, for example, you have a home equity line of credit that stands in second position. So when the loan, if the loan is paid off at the auction, then the first position would get paid first and the second would get paid second. And if there was a third, it would get paid third.
Okay.
Also, that the second positions are much riskier, and we do not invest in seconds. We've never invested in a second. It's more of a what they call crapshoot, and it's not our expertise. So we stay in our wheelhouse, which are the non-performing firsts.
Okay, you ready for this? I've done a 6th mortgage. But I'm serious. But I had the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And it was one of those, this was a commercial loan many years ago. And it was a situation where the borrower said, I just need just a little bit more money to get to the finish line, because then I'm going to refinance. And then I need just a little bit more money for finish line, This went on for a couple of years. And we got paid off in full. And by the time we did that 6th mortgage, I think we were making like 17%. It was great.
But all those positions were yours, right? You had all.
Well, second through 6th, correct? Yeah, I was not going to probably do a 6th unless I had all those other positions.
Yeah.
And and again, we want to constantly do is give out your guys' information in case people are kind of listening and going, you know what, I kind of like to know more about these guys and their company. What's your company's name, and how do people get a hold of you?
So we're Scottsdale REI LLC. REI stands for Real Estate Investing. We are not a camping store.
Yeah.
And I would like to say, going back to the original comment on our ROI calculator, the calculator URL is realroicalculator.com.
Okay, good. That way people can check it out. They won't get a free one unless they answer the trivia question, being the 3rd caller, which we're going to ask fairly soon here. Now,
well, there is a free version, Edward. So anyone who does go to that website could grab the free version. Okay. And the free version has, I believe, 7 main exits with no debt financing on any of that. But it is a good basic calculator. It'll do 7 exits for mortgage notes. It'll do wholesaling, and it will do fix and flips.
Okay, so that's a good free version. So the difference between that one and the one that's worth almost $300, there's more exit strategies on this more expensive one. Plus, what else is the difference between the two calculators?
Well, way more sophisticated. So you could finance your note purchase. You could refinance into a fix and flip, and then you can do seller financing at the end of the loan. We also have 20 exits. So it is incredibly more sophisticated and can do a lot more.
Is it fairly user-friendly?
It is user-friendly for someone who has a background in notes, but we do have training videos.
Good.
And we're always available to answer questions about it.
Okay. The notes that you guys deal in, are they all secured, or are there any unsecured?
They're all secured. I mean, an unsecured note is not a mortgage. You're just buying an unsecured promissory note. That's for debt collectors.
Yeah, yeah, we don't do that. Okay, and then also what we're going to tell the audience is a way to invest with you guys, because you're not just doing this for yourself. You have investors who get a fairly handsome return for participating in this. So. Basically, if I understand it correctly, you are hooked up with some large hedge funds. Now that you're getting a seat at the table, you're able to buy these discounted loans from them, compared to somebody who just said, hey, this sounds like a good idea, and has $400,000 and walks into Wells Fargo Bank and says, hi, I'd like to buy some of your loans. that effectively the story? That sound about right, guys? Jay?
Go ahead, Seti.
Yeah, Seti?
Well, um, I would say part of our organization, this may not be a direct answer, but part of our organization has what's called a trade desk. On that trade desk, we have multiple loans that are for sale. What we do in many cases is that we have Zooms that show how we model out the exits for those particular loans, and we do this for retail investors. So we show people how to do it on their own.
Okay, very good. So okay, that kind of goes to this next question of how does one go about purchasing or investing in mortgage notes, banks, trading platforms. So with you guys, what they can, I mean, it's kind of interesting because it's like, again, I can't just walk into Wells Fargo Bank and say, hi, I've got $50,000. I'd like to buy one of your notes. But with you guys, potentially there are some notes that I could buy for 50,000.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Oftentimes there are notes that are less than that, and notes can go up in price. I think the most expensive note we've ever purchased is a little over $1.1 million. But sure, we cut our teeth buying very low value loans. That's how Jay got into the business himself, very low value loans. So there is a wide variety, but you get a lot of support. So when you get information about a particular loan, it includes a tremendous amount of information. The estimated value, the unpaid principal balance, the total amount that you're able to collect, the payment histories, the addresses of the borrowers. There's all sorts of information that's provided, and we show people who are inexperienced what to look for, what are the most important filters to understand which notes you may want to purchase. And then, of course, when we're demonstrating our modeling, we show people how they can exit out of those. So a lot of information is provided. And also, if someone is interested in a note, they get what's called a collateral file, soft collateral file, which includes all the documents. And I'll leave it there and let Jay explain what comes in a collateral file and what kind of due diligence people can do, because it's a tremendous amount of information.
Sure. So in a soft collateral file, we call it soft because you're getting the digital images of what's in the hard file that's stored with a custodian, the current seller, the current lender's custodian. So what comes in a collateral file? Typically, the original mortgage, or at least a recorded copy of the mortgage, the original note,
Okay.
and then because we're moving, paper is being sold, as a commodity or whatever, the trail of ownership. Remember, if you're buying loans, you're not buying the house, you're just buying the security against the house.
Yep.
So the trail of ownership goes from an assignment from Bank of America to hedge fund A to hedge fund B. So what you want to see in the collateral file is that the assignment chain is intact from the originating bank up until the guy that you the hedge fund or whatever you're buying the loan from. And then the note itself is the trail of ownership of the note is characterized the chain is through a French word called an allonge, another piece of paper saying the mortgage note has been transferred from Bank of America to hedge fund A to hedge fund B. You may or may not see a title report from originating bank in there as well. That's typically what you see. I mean, it's not very often that you'll see the whole underwriting file from 2003. What's the point, right? You're buying first. You care less about the borrower when you're buying first than you do about the property, because again, if you foreclose, you're in first position. As far as your diligence is concerned, there's really 3 to 4 main things you're looking for. One is, like I just said, you want to make sure that we call it title, but it's really not title defects, because again, if you're wanting to do your diligence, make sure that the loan that you're buying is truly in first position, secured against the property. What we also refer to title is that you're also ensuring that the assignments from the originating lender to your seller are in sync as well.
Yeah.
You're also you're determining whether or not there are any delinquent property taxes, and if so, how
Yeah.
far back, and what's the story. Because in our world, the lion of the jungle is property taxes. If property taxes are, if the property is sold and lost to tax sale, you don't have a first position mortgage anymore. You have nothing. You have an unsecured promissory note.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. So
Right.
the property taxes come first before the first. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
In any point in time. So you want to make sure, and we've used third-party vendors that give us our information as to who, what, where, when, how, what years, how delinquent, whatever, and we go through how to read that. You're also wanting to check value. If I'm buying a mortgage loan at a discount, I'm buying it against the discount of either the lower of the value or the unpaid balance, or even now in this world now with equity, the legal balance. So if I'm if I'm evaluating a loan and the legal balance is 100 grand, and the seller thinks that the value of the house is 500 grand, we think, well, okay, I'm buying a property with equity. I want to buy it against the 50, 60 cents of the legal balance, which is fine. Maybe these days the market's probably closer to high 70s, low 80s, right? But what if you do your valuation and you find out that house worth $60,000? Oops.
That's a big matzo ball then.
Oops. Right? It doesn't bounce. So you got to make sure you always check your values. The fourth piece is really somewhat related to your investor ID. We like to buy occupied loans because we want to do loan mods. So we're using our realtors and our property preservation guys to go out and look at and walk the properties and determine whether they're occupied or not. And our preference is, sometimes we don't have a choice, but our preference is to buy occupied assets. Now, other investors may say, hey, you know what? I don't want to mess with the borrower. I just want to foreclose and buy a note as an acquisition strategy. I want to foreclose and fix and flip. They only want to buy vacant. Again, that would be part of your diligence because you don't want an occupied asset in that respect.
And on your trade desk, do you sell both performing and non-performing loans?
Yes.
Okay. And again, if people are interested in, obviously they're not signing up for anything except for maybe just information, and they were interested in potentially buying some of these notes from you guys, both performing and non-performing, how would they do that?
So you go to the website, www.scottsdalerei.com.
Okay.
You click on Trade Desk. You download our NDA, and you sign the NDA, send it back,
Non-disclosure agreement. Okay.
and you're on our list, and you get all the tapes that come out, the offerings that come out, and when we're doing, if we're doing live Zoom presentations, then you're getting the information on when those are held.
Generally speaking, if someone's going to buy a performing note, generally, what kind of rate of return are they expecting, assuming that the borrower continues to perform?
Sadie, you want to answer that?
Yeah, there's it really depends on what they're interested in terms of rate of return. But I think with what we've experienced before, you're looking at the high single digits, low double digits in terms of performing
notes. Yeah, and I know part of it's going to depend on how many more months are left on the loan. There's obviously, if something's got 20 more years to go, that's going to probably be different than someone's got 2 years left to go. And then any idea on the non-performing? I'm sure it's all over the map, but you guys probably have a track record.
Yeah, well, non-performing loans are much riskier than performing loans.
Okay.
And therefore, because of that, you would like to see that these types of investments do pay off significantly greater than something that's performing, which can be predictable. So in our experience with the loans that we have, and it's difficult to say this because in many cases we are getting internal rates of return in the mid-20s on the offerings that we're working on right now. Our actual track record performance is above that. But with the loans that we're purchasing now, at the end of the real estate cycle, where our purchase price is probably the highest we have ever paid because of the equity in the market, Due to that, returns have come down as they have in the real estate market in general, but we are certainly performing significantly greater than, let's say, multifamily or other types of real estate investment.
Okay. Yeah, one of the reasons I like being a lender is instead of buying a property for, $100,000, I like getting into it for 60,000 and know that if something goes wrong, I might actually walk away with 100 grand or close to it. So, not that I'm trying to purposely foreclose people out, but things happen. All right, guys, you ready for our commercial break? This is the one where we're going to ask the trivia question. The third caller with the correct answer is going to win the Pro version calculator, which is worth $299. So, audience, get ready to get on your phone and call 888-912-1190 to answer this question. Here's our trivia question. Meathead, dingbat, and stifle yourself are associated with what TV show from the 1970s? All right. Call 888-912-1190. The third caller with the correct answer is going to win that Pro version calculator worth $299, which has 20 different exit strategies for analyzing notes. So it's worth quite a lot, actually. I think it's worth more than $299. All right. So again, we're going to ask the trivia question again. Meathead, dingbat, and stifle yourself are associated with what TV show from the 1970s? Again, the third caller calling 888-912-1190 is going to win the Pro version calculator worth $299. Stay with us. You are listening to Real Estate Mastermind Live radio show. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Real Estate Mastermind Live radio show. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with our co-hosts, Jay Tannenbaum and Seti Gershberg of Scottsdale REI. Our trivia question was, Meathead, Dingbat, and Stifle Yourself are associated with what 1970s show? Gentlemen, what's the name of the show?
All in the Family.
All in the Family, yes, with Archie Bunker. That's correct. And we won't know who the third caller is yet. We'll announce it next week. But the third caller calling the 888-912-1190 to answer that question wins the Pro version calculator, which is worth $299. All right. So we already talked about the process of purchasing a note on the trade desk. Question, am I responsible for performing my own due diligence? What kind of information does your team supply?
Go ahead, Seti.
Well, we supply the information, but the due diligence is up to the individual purchasing the note. So that's something that they would have to learn how to do and understand what the things that they would need to look for. I think Jay went over quite a few of those earlier in terms of the documents that would be provided in a soft collateral file. In addition to that, one would want to pull what's called an O&E report, which basically provides information on any type of debt, chains of assignment, et cetera, et cetera. We want to get tax certifications, and that would be something in addition. Plus, when you're analyzing a note, there are many other aspects of it, like doing your own valuations of the assets. Of course, you're going to receive what's called a BPO, which is a broker's price opinion inside that collateral file. That may be aged, or it may be produced by a person who's not that experienced in real estate. But this is a way to get a basic valuation. However, you want to do the valuation on your own. Probably want to have a realtor go out and check the property and walk the property, take photographs. So there's a lot of things you can do in your due diligence. Jay, you got anything in addition to that?
No, you covered pretty much, of it all. I mean, there are, certain avenues to get educated. We are in the process of partnering up with another entity to provide that education to those who want to get in this business, but don't know how to go about it. We also have what we call a forward contract, which basically for those who are looking at notes, because again, the discounts that Seti suggested and the returns are a lot more attractive than multifamily, et cetera. but you're an investor and you say, well, I don't know the first thing about notes, but at a point in time, whether it's now or 6 months ago or 6 months from going forward, when you're trying to find your deals and deal flow becomes an issue, using notes as an acquisition strategy to do your fix and flips, your buy and holds, is something very, very relevant. But if you're sitting there saying, I don't know I'm an experienced fix and flipper, I'm experienced, buy and hold rent, landlord, I don't know the first thing about notes. We develop what we call a forward contract. Basically, it's you see a note on our platform, and you say, look, I want this note. We agree on a price right then and there. You make a deposit, and then for a fee, we will continue to manage that property, that asset, through foreclosure, and deliver you the REO. Just another acquisition strategy. And then the remainder of the purchase price is paid at the time that we deliver the property back to you instead of the note that you buy.
Okay, good. Now, if I buy a note, and let's say it's a performing note, does the borrower write the check to me, or do I have some other company handle the payments? And how long?
This industry is totally regulated into using third-party servicers. The big banks and small operators such as ourselves do not self-service our own loans. It's you can get into some federal regulations. There's just too much federal regulation about it. So you do use a third-party servicer, and the third-party servicer follows the federal regulations. You buy a loan, they send out a notice saying, hey, it's been nice for you defaulting on me, but now you're going to be defaulting on some other servicer effective this date. That's called a goodbye letter. And then the new servicer sends the hello letter to the borrower saying, I'm the new sheriff in town, and you're now going to default on my watch.
But now hold on, let me back up for a minute though. You're allowed to service your own notes though, aren't you? If you want.
You can, but again, would I want to run afoul of federal regulations? No. With all the requirements that you have. Because remember, you got to send out goodbye letters, hello letters, the Truth in Lending Act letter when there's change of ownership. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you need to do as a bank.
Okay, so it's legal to do it, but you just there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you have to be concerned about. Is
correct. And if I'm buying a performing loan, if I don't apply the right amount of payment to principal or versus interest, whatever, that's an actionable offense by to the lender. So gotcha. Again, don't do this at home. I would not advocate self-servicing your own loan.
Okay, so here's the question: is how much does that cost to have a third-party servicer?
That's a really good question, because I was going to actually ask you a question, Edward.
Yes.
Because you discovered something, on low balance loans, meaning that when not a lot is owed or you don't pay a lot for them, your returns may actually have a return that is extremely high, right? Because you have just let's say you're collecting $300 a month on a $12,000 loan. So, your return of $3,600 a year on $12,000 is extremely high, right? But as you've noticed, Edward, what happens when you take a $30 servicing fee per month on a $300 a month payment?
Now you're down to $270, and your yield is substantially different.
Still pretty good, right?
It still may be really good. It's just a lot less than what it would be if it was $300. But if you're collecting, $5,000 a month compared to $4,970, it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Right. And what if you're only collecting $180 a month?
Then it makes a substantial.
Then it kills the return. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So when people are analyzing, and I like to use what this website called T-Value. It's really cheap. It's like $60 a year, and you can do it on Excel, but it's so much faster to use T-Value. And I guess I bet your pro version calculator can do it too, right?
We do have T-Value. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Let's see here.
And in our world, we call it IRR, or internal rate of return, and that's calculated for all performing loans that are analyzed in that calculator.
Now, if you have some new investors, they get on your trade desk, et cetera, does your company offer any kind of financing, or some type of forward contract for new investors?
Well, the forward contract's not a form of financing. It's kind of like an option agreement where you're looking, you identify the outcome you want, and we'll deliver it for you because you're not sufficiently educated enough to yourself. As far as financing, it was something that we looked into a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess at the right cost of capital, conceptually it would work because again, the barrier of entry, there's when I started doing this in 2013, there was zero abilities to get financing for loans because remember, you're not securing against the property. So a bank, you go to your local Chase, whatever, and like, I want to, finance this mortgage note. They're like, what am I securing with? And nobody understood how to securitize it for themselves.
Well, because for a bank, it's personal property because they don't have the loan in their name. You have it in your name. You're just
Correct.
pledging it as collateral. That's the reason.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So now, now the market has evolved to where there are financiers available. And I think, the most common structure is, your lender owns the loan. The assignment goes into your lender's name on a participation finance type agreement. So there is, if you can find, the right entity or source that understands it sufficiently, there is. We don't have that capability. We've toyed with it. We were really looking at it from a risk standpoint, going, okay, because remember, if you're adding now, you got costs associated with managing loans, right? You got your servicers, you've got your custodial, you've got your insurance, you've got your attorney's fees for closing, and now if you're adding debt service to it, it's just one more level of impacting on your return and your time frame. And if you're sophisticated operators like ourselves, yeah, we can manage it. That's fine. But if you're not, your debt service can eat up your entire profit, especially if you're buying low value loans.
So people, rather than you guys, let's say, offering financing, maybe you can manage portfolios for people, can't you? Like in maybe the non-performing loans. The performing ones, they would just probably hand it over to a servicer. But a non-performing one, you could probably handle for them.
We could, yeah. We're capable of it, sure.
All right. People wonder how I know this stuff, and I'm like Jethro Bodine in the Beverly Hills Lilies. I graduated from the 6th grade. You remember that show?
Yeah.
Twice I graduated from 6th grade. Okay, let's see here. A question comes up here. Can I use notes to create passive income?
Well, that would be what we talked about earlier in terms of a reperforming loan. So for example, you buy a non-performing loan at a deep discount and you speak with the borrower, or you have a third party speak with the borrower. In many cases, we have that done because, again, there's certain types of language that you can use and not use. So it's not really for the faint of heart. We engage a third party to have those discussions. We've taken that in-house recently because we have people on our staff that actually know how to do that. But if you're just doing this on your own, probably going to want to have a third party do it. So the conversation with the borrower ultimately would turn into a modification of the loan or a reinstatement. Either way, they're now paying on their mortgage, and you've set the amount that they're paying, and then they're paying you like clockwork. So that is passive income. I would like to add also, what you've done is you've added value to that particular loan because you have now gotten it paying, and you're able to sell that loan now at a profit. So if you want just passive income, you can keep it until the loan is paid off, or you can sell it and raise capital, and in many cases make money.
All right. Now, here's a question for you. Can I sell a note on your trade desk? So I know I can buy loans from you on your trade desk. What if I've got a note that I want to sell? Can I sell it on your trade desk to someone else, or even to you guys maybe? What do you think?
Well, it's an interesting question. So, to be totally transparent on this, I don't think we've really considered it before, except with large institutional players. So what we've been talking about here, pretty much all show, has been what we do on the retail side with retail investors. But we do have a very active institutional side where we're trading very large amounts of loans. In fact, we have one out right now for 533 loans. So I'm sure you can imagine this is quite a purchase. So in those particular cases, we are going to be able to trade them out for a brokerage fee, but we haven't really considered that on the retail side. It's not that we couldn't do it, but we'd have to analyze it and see if that would work for us. I don't know, maybe Jay's considered it, but that's basically my perception of what's going on at this point.
And just to follow up with that, where Seti remarks that I've considered it, I don't necessarily I appreciate the compliment, but Seti will tell you that the trade desk was somewhat of my idea. At least I wouldn't say it was my idea. At least I was the champion of it to get it off the ground, because I do see it as a viable benefit to to others of the community in the space. So have I thought about it? A little bit. I guess it would be something from the Department of Coming Soon. I mean, there are others in this industry that have set up platforms, and they do it. We pride ourselves. We Scottsdale REI. We are the trade desk. That our platform is the trade desk, right? That's what we call it. And not that we want to be unique because we want to be unique, but I think we want to be unique because we've been in this business long enough to know what benefits and what benefits other buyers want to see and what to overcome. Because there's been others that have tried this and they've gotten the thing was, let's set up as a platform, push a button and here we go and all that. And sometimes the artificial or the kind of the just the what do I want to say? Just the lack of human touch to it just doesn't really work, right? Just pushing a button and saying I want this loan, and then your diligence drops down. It's almost like going to a buffet. Boom, the food pops down. So I think the human touch to it. We know our files, everything on it. So to date, everything on our trade desk are assets that we've already owned. So when a prospective buyer says, "What about this? What about that?" We've been already working the loan. Like I said before, like Star Trek, with loans we buy, we've been working from the time we bought them. So when we put them on the trade desk, we know where they are, right? As opposed to just like more or less wholesaling, which is where we're not, right? We own this stuff. And again, the trade desk has been, a product of, for all the years that we've been in business, we were pretty much buying for our own portfolio, working them out ourselves, earning, liquidating the assets, disposing of the assets for our own portfolio. And, we were exposed and learned that, making deal flow available in the marketplace, was one thing. Is you're scaling up and you're buying a lot of loans, you could say, hey, I could manage 1,000 loans, or I can constantly manage 500 loans if I have a trade desk that'll move some of the other stuff. And not to say the trade desk. Let's talk about some misnomers here. The trade desk is not our junk. There's some very good assets on the trade desk. It's just a matter of managing the inventory and keeping the capital turning. That's the point of why we're putting the assets, how we identify the assets that go on the trade desk. Now, the one thing the other thing that I want to stress with regards to the trade desk is what we found. I guess we'll kind of as we've evolved with it is, before I got into note investing in 2013, I had wanted to be a real estate investor, had gone to hotel ballrooms and stuff like that, and got good education over that weekend. Don't get me wrong, I did. But come Monday morning, I was stumbled on how do I find my first deal? And when I got involved in note investing, it's the deal flow, the relationships that I was able to develop very, very quickly with other sellers, other hedge funds, right? Propelled me the ability to buy. So the deal flow was there. And so, providing deal flow to other known investors is huge in this market. And one thing we found is that, in fact, we had a conversation with the guys we know yesterday. What we found is not only are we catering to the retail investor, like we talked about the majority of the show, your small investor who's buying 1 or 2, 3, 4 loans a year, right? But because we're providing the deal flow, because we've been able to buy as much loans as we have over the course of the last year or so, and we're making the stuff available on the trade desk, now our trading partners are coming to us, looking to us as a viable source to buy from. We talked to a guy yesterday that we were buying from, and now he's looking at us to buy from us. So it's kind of, the script kind of flipped a little bit. And I mean, I'm blessed with that because again, as we're providing a need in the industry.
Okay. And again, we haven't given out your information for a while, so tell the investors, tell the audience how to get a hold of you if they're interested in your trade desk and also your website for the calculator.
The website is www.scottsdalerei.com. Again, that's REI stands for Real Estate Investments, not the camping store.
Yeah.
We're not the camping store, as Steady's mentioned earlier. We have access to the trade desk from the website. The calculators, the access to the free version of the calculators on the website. You can inquire as to the more enhanced version of the calculator. And remember, as Steady mentioned before, the calculator, as it was developed by note investors for note investors, it really is available and utilized. It can and should be utilized for investors of all walks of market. Maybe not necessarily multifamily, but your fix and flip guys, your rental, buy and hold investors. It's available for them. So you don't have to be a note investor to get the maximum benefit out of any version of the IRR calculator.
Very good. Sorry about that. Okay, and why don't you give us some stories? How you've been working out some of these loans and some success stories of getting rid of some of the NPLs or getting paid off on them.
Stories. Sandy, do you have any stories that come to mind? I mean, as you're in the trenches moving this stuff day to day, the stories just come like what happened yesterday. Go ahead, Sandy.
One of my favorite ones happened to be with a contract for deed, which is like a note, but we hold the title as opposed to the borrower holding the title. It's more like a car loan. Jay and I purchased a portfolio of contract for deeds as our first transaction. And there was one in there from a place called Heavener, Oklahoma. Now, Heavener, Oklahoma is a place that used to have a large mining operation. And at some point that dried up. It became a place where there were a number of poultry processing plants. So we purchased this contract for deed. It was a house that was in great disrepair, and we had some basics taken care of it. The lawn was cut down. I think the grass was about 4.5 feet tall. We had a shed that was hanging on by one stud, and we had that torn down and hauled off. But the interior of the place, holes in the ceiling, the staircases, you couldn't even walk upstairs. So what are we going to do with this thing? We put it for seller financing, and we wind up getting a gentleman and his wife. They're both on disability, but their children, I believe, were able to do contracting work, and they came in and we're going to take care of the place. So we call these handyman specials. So a handyman special is where you're seller financing it to someone who's got the capability of doing a fixer-upper, and because it's a lower cost for them, they basically build equity. So in this case, that's what happened. But not too long after, we found out that this gentleman was kicked out of Heavener. Apparently, and we didn't know this, he was a sex offender, and the city of Heavener didn't want him around, so they were asked to leave, and they left. What we did was we seller financed it to somebody else. We seller financed it to a truck driver. Now, remember, each time we're taking a deposit, right, and then we're getting paid. So we did this with a truck driver, and he's been paying dutifully. I don't know, maybe he paid off already. I'll ask Jay that. But I know he was paying significantly higher because he didn't want to do a 20-year mortgage. He wanted to pay it off in 4, 5, 6 years, just like a car loan. So he was making accelerated payments. And so I love this story because we had two seller finance deals on this, and I don't know what our return was, but it was pretty astronomical.
So your ears must have been burning because the second gentleman called me today because believe it or not, Steady, we put him on a 3-year deal at $909 a month, and this month is his last payment. And he called just to figure out what the last payment payoff was. We both agreed that time flies when, it's been 3 years since he actually paid a month ahead. He's actually paying it off a month early. One of the stories that I want to tell is, again, the same. Sadie and I got our start. Let's get back up a second. Sadie and I got our start working together. I'd been in this business, as I mentioned before, several times since 2013. Sadie and I met in the summer of 2017. We bought a portfolio of 21 contract for deeds in September of 2018. The Huebner, Oklahoma story was one of those. We bought 21 basically properties on seller finance loans for $85,000. Now, the Huebner loan we probably didn't pay more than $4,000 or $5,000 for it. In fact, I think the first guy who made a $4,000 down payment probably paid back the loan. We were probably in the black ever since. This guy paid another $3,000 down. So we have a guy in a rural area of West Virginia, and he's been struggling to make the payments, forever. And only because he's in rural West Virginia, I haven't been the cold-hearted soul that says, you don't pay, I'm going to foreclose on you because I don't want that house. And so, I've worked with the guy. His wife had leukemia. His wife passed away a couple years ago. And he's gotten hurt. He works in the coal mines. He got hurt. He can't get Social Security. He can't get disability. He gets denied. He can't get unemployment. He keeps struggling and all this other stuff. But he was able to get some Mountaineer assistance, and he basically got the homeowners type assistance that paid off his loan from the inception of our ownership in 2018 through, I think it was March or April of last year. And then we struggled ever since, from March, April of 22 to do it, right? And finally, since we were in the black so bad, we just, over Christmas, I went to Sadie and said, you know what? Let's just deed him back the house. Let's call the note paid off and just deed him back the house. And when I called him and did tell him that, he cried, which I expected.
Oh, that's really sweet. Hey guys, we're gonna have to cut out. That's a great way to end the story, end the show. Before we get to our thoughts of the day, go ahead and give out your information one more time.
Sadie, go ahead.
So our website is www.scottsdalerei.com, and for the real ROI calculator, you can go to our website and get that, or go to realroicalculator.com.
Very good. Okay, guys, we're going to cut out. Here's our thoughts for the day. So years ago, I lost my job at the bank on my very first day. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her over. That didn't go over too well. And did you hear about?
No.
Did you hear about the mathematician who was afraid of negative numbers? He stops at nothing to avoid them. And I want to hear. Now, this was really. You think that was bad? You want to hear a really bad one? You want to hear my joke about straws? Never mind. It sucks. All right. All right. Now that we got a laugh out of both of you. All right. Here we go. All right. Tune in next week to Real Estate Mastermind Live, where we're going to be discussing various aspects of real estate notes, and asking trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
So long.
Take care.